fed GMOs, and the same ones that the farmers and veterinarians tell us their livestock gets better from when they start feeding them non-GMO corn and soy. And so it turns out there's a correlation between what's afflicting the lab animals, what people are reporting getting better from, the livestock getting better from, pets are getting better from, and those things that are on the rise in the U.S. population. Now, there was a mysterious kidney disease killing up to 25% of the labor force in Central America among farmers working in sugarcane plantations. They spray the sugarcane with glyphosate just before ripening.
I've seen the documentaries where it shows the sad little family and half of them are dying, and then you go to the next village and the same deal. It's just incredible.
Now, there was a study that showed that Roundup, we talked about how it chelates. It binds with certain minerals. It binds with arsenic and can smuggle that arsenic into the body where it gets into the kidneys. Then the situation in the kidneys allows it to unchelate. So now you have two toxins in the kidneys. You have glyphosate and you have arsenic. And this is the theory of this mysterious kidney disease that's afflicting farm workers both in Central America and in Sri Lanka. They believe it's a combination of glyphosate and arsenic.
Sure. What about the massive sicknesses in India associated with it?
Oh, yeah. So there's all these people who touch the cotton plants either while they're harvesting or while they're cleaning it and get rashes all over their bodies. They allow animals to graze on the cotton plants after harvest, and thousands have died. I visited one village where there are buffalo, 13 of them, all of them died after eating the cotton plants after a single day. These same buffalo had survived 8 years eating natural cotton plants after harvest.
So that's a bioaccumulation.
Yeah, but bioaccumulation is interesting because Monsanto said that glyphosate is water soluble and can just go out of the body. But it turns out the glyphosate amount in the breast milk in humans is so high, it demonstrates that it does bioaccumulate, which means it's probably in higher levels of our milk and probably higher levels of our meat. So it's also found in rain samples and air samples in 60 to 100%. In the Midwest, where it's sprayed a lot, it's found in our water samples and it's found in our urine. In fact, the amount has increased so much because the herbicide is now being resisted by weeds. There was an increase in herbicides because of GMOs in the first 16 years by 527
And then, as you said, it kills the soil and then won't even work after a while. And that's why the farmers then commit suicide in India. We're going to break. I want to come back and let you hit other key areas for this segment and one other. And then Percy Smizer joins us at 5 after. But let me ask you this in the next minute and a half. If they knew about this in the 80s, and I know about those studies and their own internal concerns, why would they approve this and roll it out? I mean, are these people directly like Hellraiser, like some type of demons? I mean, what's their problem?
Well, we know from the FDA memos made public from a lawsuit that GMOs in general were described by FDA scientists as dangerous. They said allergens, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems may be created, and we need to test them carefully. But the White House had told the FDA to promote biotechnology because it was going to increase U.S. exports and domination of world food trade. So the FDA brought in Michael Taylor, Monsanto's former attorney, later its vice president, and then later back at the FDA as the U.S. food safety czar, to be in charge of the GMO policy. His policy ignored the scientists' warnings, claimed that GMOs had no difference, therefore no safety studies were needed.
And now the world is rejecting our food, and it's doing the opposite thing.
Exactly. So it's a political influence over the scientific process almost every time. And there's a new example of like this I'd like to bring up after the break.
We'll do that, and then I want to hear about some of the victims of Monsanto. Folks need to remember the true veterans of this war. By the way, folks, this is so sick. I don't know what to say at this point. It's just, thank God people are waking up. Headlines: EU passes controversial GMO food law. EU agrees to opt-out deal for GMO imports. Monsanto secretly gave money to farmer caught contaminating organic farms with GMOs. Record U.S. farmers switching to non-GMO crops in 2015. Hundreds of farmers blocked roads in protest of Monsanto GMO crops. Thousands of Polish farmers and GMOs land rights protest. Booming organics. U.S. farmers forced to import organic crops to meet non-GMO demand. That's what's in this TPP coming up, is more forced deals to accept all this. But then they won't let us label and just make our own choice. They're totalitarian. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go back to our guest, Jeffrey Smith, responsibletechnology.org. You can find his books, his films there, also InfoWarsStore.com. He's been with us for another 5 minutes the next hour. Then Percy Smizer joins us. We're really focusing in on this today. I've got some other geopolitical news I'm going to get to. I haven't yet. I said I would. There's just so much of it. It's on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. You wanted to get into one other issue before you got into the persecution that these groups, it's not just Monsanto, it's a whole combine of these organizations, but I'd say they're the biggest head on the Hydra, or I guess kind of the main head of Medusa, but there's a lot of snakes up in her hair. Maybe that's the best analogy. Please continue.
Sure. By the way, I'm in Ecuador today because there's one of your listeners heard our interview earlier on, started studying my work, and invited me to come and speak in Ecuador. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, brother.
I was on The Daily Show recently, and they did a terrible job in their coverage of the new genetically engineered non-browning potato and apple. I wrote a very long article on my website at responsibletechnology.org as to why this new technology may be far more dangerous than any of the other type of GMOs produced. It uses something called double-stranded RNA. Now, the code on the RNA, little piece of RNA, matches up with the code of the DNA and silences the gene. So it silences the gene that produces the browning for the apple and the potato. But it turns out that if we eat the apple and potato, this double-stranded RNA code may match up with our gene code and silence or change our gene expression. Now, as an example, they fed some double-stranded RNA to honeybees, and it was supposed to have no effect. It was supposed to be the control group. It turns out it changed 1,461 genes levels of expression. That means 10% of the entire genome of the honeybees were affected when they were fed one single meal
This is
of
pure
double-stranded
madness.
RNA.
Folks don't understand, the RNA is what viruses are made of. And when you then bring RNA into a plant or a human that's designed like this, it's beyond a virus. It's a turn off or turn on switch. It just sounds like something that would give you cancer to me.
Well, it certainly could make changes that could possibly cause cancer, but we don't know. Now, the USDA's own scientists said, we don't have an assessment available to protect the public and environment from this double-stranded RNA. We need to completely revamp our risk assessment. 2 years later, without revamping the risk assessment, the USDA went ahead and approved double-stranded RNA in food. Now, their excuse, as well as the excuse from regulators around the world, is based on science that's 10 years old.
Well, think how insane this is, though. It turns brown to let you know it's not as fresh. This is normal. It's like a vampire injection. So you don't need to have any oxygen, but you still are alive. I mean, this is insane. I mean, there's no...
These apples can last 18 days without turning brown. The potatoes won't turn brown at all. They'll just dry up and disappear. And we don't know we're eating.
Stay there, sir. I gotta hear up. This is insane. This just gets worse by the second. His first film was like in 1999, if memory serves. Percy Schmeiser is going to be joining us coming up. Final segment here with the man that heads up one of the premier organizations documenting what's happening and traveling the world. ResponsibleTechnology.org, Jeffrey Smith. We got about 4 minutes left. Finish up with potatoes that never turn brown. They just dry, and then apples that take 18 days or whatever you said. I mean, this is just crazy. And then they're changing the RNA to do this. And as everybody knows, you change one area of the genes, then it starts chain reactioning every time. We're just not ready to do this. Bare minimum. Go ahead.
Well, you're absolutely right, Alex. When they looked at the honeybees with the 1,461 changes in genes, some were directly changed because of the matchup between the double-stranded RNA and the genes, and some were what were called secondary effects. Now, we had no way of predicting any of this, and yet this is right in our face in the literature, published and peer-reviewed, not just in insects, but a mouse that they fed double-stranded RNA from rice. It changed the expression of a gene in their liver. So the excuses by the regulators are so obsolete. They say, oh, RNA won't have an effect. It'll be destroyed before it gets into the bloodstream. It'll never have an effect on mammals. All of that has been proven.
Well, I've seen study after study, as you know, that DNA and RNA from plants and GMO stuff both leaks through and interfaces with us. The difference is we're designed to be in harmony with all this other stuff over all these years, not all this new stuff.
Precisely, and the changes can be inheritable because of epigenetics. Now, I have to end on good news, Alex. I can't scare people about reprogramming their DNA and then saying goodbye, have a good day. Let me say, let me say this. You may be able to do that. I can't. At responsibletechnology.org, I'd like to recommend that those who would like to see us implement our master 5-year plan to eliminate GMOs, we could use your donation. We are so far now advanced along the way of creating tipping points in the United States and elsewhere. We see that we can eliminate GMOs for our food supply within 3 years, from animal feed within 5 years. We have a very specific plan, and we were looking for donations to support it. Now, the fact that we are even at this level where we can have a 5-year master plan to eliminate GMOs shows that the work we've been doing for, in my case, the last 19 years has been successful.
And by the way, you're doing the kind of stuff that'll make them really come after you, so we salute you. You are a great place for people to donate to maximize an effect for humanity.
And 40% of Americans now say they're avoiding or reducing GMOs. Even 2 years ago, 75% of Americans were uncomfortable with it, mostly because of the health issue. And now we have chains like Chipotle's and then other things where they're declaring non-GMO and getting huge publicity. So we're seeing all the early signs of a tipping point. Now we have to make sure that moms know the truth, that chronically ill people know the truth, that pet owners know the truth about their pets, that doctors know. So we have very targeted demographic groups, very specific, powerful information, and because thousands of people say that when they avoid eating GMOs, they get better, their kids get better, we have stories to tell, backed by the science. We have the communication tools necessary to change people's diet. It's really very...
Is this not so exciting? I mean, you were coming on the show like in '99 and stuff, and back then this was, I mean, did this movement have 2% of the power it has now? I mean...
No. Right now we are so further along, it's unbelievable. I speak to doctors' conferences that I spoke at 7 or 8 years ago, and they tell me since I was there, they've been prescribing non-GMO diets, and people after people after people are getting better, and they describe gastrointestinal problems, rashes, allergies, asthma, weight
Yeah, I mean, weed killer's not good for you. Wow. What a revolutionary thought, but Jeffrey Smith had to say it. Jeffrey Smith, we salute you, responsibletechnology.org. Let's talk to you very soon, as soon as you get back from Ecuador. You ever come through Austin, we want to get you in studio. We'll be back with Percy Schmeiser, the farmer that took on Goliath. Implode, and on every front, we're winning the intellectual battle. That's why they're counter-offensing right now with forced inoculations worldwide, lying about that. That's why they're counter-launching, trying to push GMOs worldwide. It's not working. Now, it was back in 1999 when all this started. And Percy Schmeiser had Monsanto coming after him. They were claiming that even though he had the record of buying his seeds, that he needed to pay them because his crops have been contaminated. And when they contaminate you, they then try to charge you. Now, I've interviewed him several times over the years, but I tell you, the tables have turned muy grande, big time. They have changed in a big way and fast. Big, big. We just went over that in the last hour. And listen, this is a microcosm. Well, it's actually huge. This huge victory, this huge war, connects to all the other things we're fighting. It's the same eugenicist globalist agenda. And we're so close. That's why they're tripling down on everything they're doing. And then doubling down again and doubling down again, because it's all coming out. Yes, there's illegal NSA spying. It's being used for political control and blackmail. Yes, they've gotten rid of the borders for North American Union. Yes, we're going under global treaties to these corporations so they can rule us. Yes, our government's funding radical Islamists to destabilize the Middle East and take our liberties at home in the name of stopping them. Yes, they're trying to bankrupt small farms and ranches across the world to consolidate for big agri. This is a consolidation, vertical integration war, in the big corporation's own words. And Percy Schmeiser is, again, a farmer from Bruno, Saskatchewan, Canada. I interviewed him when it was literally first in the news. I'm proud of that fact. He specializes in breeding and growing canola. He he creates his own amazing seed line. They didn't like that. That's who they target. They've bought up the original seed line. See, it's a monopoly. He became an international symbol and spokesman for independent farmers' rights and the regulation of transgenic crops during his protracted legal battle with multinational agricultural company Monsanto. He was the subject of the 2009 David versus Monsanto film. Schmeiser served as mayor of Bruno from 66 to 83 and as town councilor since 2003 and currently serves as the deputy mayor. In 2000, he received the